Hey everyone, it's Miss O'Donnell. So today we're going to talk about the next part of our standard, which is radians. So first we have to say, what is a radian? So some of you might have heard radian before. I talked about it a little bit in class, but we didn't really talk about what it is. So what a radian is, it's a new way to measure angles. So it's another unit that we can use instead of degrees. So just like with length, I can measure in inches or feet or yards or centimeters. I can measure angles in either degrees or radians. So what a radian is going to be is when our arc length, so from B to A, when our arc length is the same as our radius, that's going to be 1 radian. So here my radius is 5 centimeters, my arc length is 5 centimeters, so this angle is 1 radian. Now if I made my angle bigger, now my arc length is 10 centimeters. That's twice as long as my radius, so my angle is 2 radians. I'm going to make it even bigger. Now my arc length is 15. 15 is 3 times my radius, so that's going to be 3 radians. You could keep going all the way around the circle. What we want to figure out is how many radians are going to be in a full circle. So we know that there are 360 degrees in a circle. Now we want to see how many radians are in a full circle. So we talked about radians, and a radian is when the arc length is the same as the radius. So if I want to know how many radians are an angle, I got to see how many radiuses are in the arc length. So if I want to know how many radians are in a full circle, I got to see what the arc length is of my full circle. So how long is the arc length of a full circle? Hopefully you remember right in the beginning of arc length, we talked about what the length is all the way around a circle, and that's called circumference. So the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r, 2 times pi times the radius. So what we need to figure out if we want to know how many radians are in a full circle, we got to know how many radiuses are in 2 pi r. Right, so if I want to think how many radiuses are there in 2 pi times the radius, that's going to be 2 pi. There are 2 pi radiuses in 2 pi r. Right? There are 2 pi radians in a full circle. That means a full circle is 2 pi radians. A full circle is also 360 degrees. So 2 pi radians is the same as 360 degrees. Now take a second. I know that's a little bit weird to think about. We haven't talked about angles in any other way. So if you're confused, go back, rewind the video, start over. Basically, all we're doing is we're converting between two different measurements. Just like I could say that 3 feet are in a yard, right? 1 yard equals 3 feet. 2 pi radians equals 360. It's the same amount. The angle's the same size. We're just measuring it in two different units. So since we have two different units, the first thing we're going to talk about is how to convert between degrees and radians. All right, so here's a circle. I know that that angle is 40 degrees. I want to see how many radians is the same as 40 degrees. So here's how we're going to set up our problem. Whatever you want goes on top. So I want radians. I have degrees. I want radians, so I'm going to put radians on top. So I'm going to compare radians to degrees. Radians over degrees. How many radians are in a full circle? 2 pi. How many degrees are in a full circle? 360. So I've got this magic fraction comparing my radians to degrees, 2 pi over 360. Then I'm going to multiply that by my angle. So 2 pi divided by 360 times 40. So when we multiply, we're going to multiply straight across. We're going to do 2 pi times 40 is 80 pi. 360 times nothing, 360. So I just multiplied straight across. 2 pi times 40 is 80 pi. 360 is 360. So this means that I now have 80 pi over 360 radians. So that's a fraction. I can't leave it like this. I want to reduce it. So I got to find it in simplest form. So I want to find my greatest common factor between 80 and 360. The greatest common factor is going to be 40. So I'm going to do 80 divided by 40 is 2. 360 divided by 40 is 9. So I have 2 pi over 9. This means 40 degrees equals 2 pi over 9 radians. We are always going to leave it in terms of pi. So always just leave that pi. Don't multiply it by pi. So if I said how many radians are in 40 degrees, you would say 2 pi over 9. All right, so now we're going to go the other way. Remember, our angle is 5 pi over 3. I want to know how many degrees is the same as 5 pi over 3 radians. So when we set up our fraction, whatever you want goes on top. I want degrees. So I'm going to do degrees over radians. How many degrees are in a full circle? 360. How many radians are in a full circle? 2 pi. I'm going to do 360 over 2 pi times my angle. My angle is 5 pi over 3. And I'm going to multiply straight across. I'm going to do 360 times 5 pi. So 360 times 5 is 1,800. Then I'm going to do 2 pi times 3, 6 pi. So I have 1,800 pi divided by 6 pi. I have pi over pi. Those are going to cancel out. I'm going to do 1,800 divided by 6 equals 300 degrees. So 5 pi over 3 radians is 300 degrees. So what we're going to do is we're always going to start with writing a fraction, either radians over degrees or degrees over radians. Whatever you want goes on top. Whatever you have goes on the bottom. All right, then you multiply your fraction, or you multiply that fraction by your angle, and then you reduce. So we're going to go through a couple problems. So practice number 1, convert 225 degrees to radians. So pause the video, see if you can do that. All right, step 1, what do you want? We want radians. Radians goes on top. Radians over degrees. 2 pi radians in a full circle, 360 degrees in a full circle. Multiply that by your angle, times 225. Multiply across. 2 pi times 225 is 550. No, it's not. It's 450. 450 pi divided by 360. We want to reduce that. So we got to say, what is the greatest common factor between 450 and 360? I believe it's 90. So 450 divided by 90 is 5. 360 divided by 90 is 4. So we've got 5 pi over 4. So 225 degrees is the same as 5 pi over 4 radians. All right, here's another one. Convert 2 pi over 3 radians to degrees. So pause the video, but I figure it out. All right. What you want goes on top. We want degrees. Degrees over radians. 360 over 2 pi. Multiply by our angle times 2 pi over 3. Multiply straight across. 360 times 2 is 720 pi. 2 pi times 3 is 6 pi. Our pi's cancel out. 720 divided by 6 equals 120 degrees. So 2 pi over 3 radians is the same as 120 degrees. All right, practice number 3, convert 56 degrees to radians. Pause the video, figure it out. All right, what you want goes on top. We want radians. Radians over degrees. 2 pi over 360. Multiply by your angle times 56. Multiply straight across. 2 pi times 56. 2 times 56 is 112 pi over 360. Find our greatest common factor. I believe our greatest common factor is 8. So 112 divided by 8 is 14. 360 divided by 8 is 45. So I got 56 degrees equals 14 pi over 45 radians. All right, last one. Convert pi over 6 radians to degrees. What we want goes on top. We want degrees. So degrees over radians, 360 over 2 pi. Multiply by your angle, times pi over 6. Multiply straight across. 360 times pi is 360 pi. 2 pi times 6 is 12 pi. Our pi's cancel each other out. 360 divided by 12 equals 30 degrees. All right, so I know that was a lot. So all you're going to be doing today on your exit ticket is you're going to describe to me what radians are. So there's going to be a couple questions asking about what a radian is. That was in the beginning of the video. And then you're going to convert between degrees and radians and degrees. So you're going to start with your fraction. Remember, what you want goes on top. either degrees over radians or radians over degrees, multiply it by your angle, and then reduce. If you're confused, email me. I can find some more videos for you to watch. I can also give you some more practice problems. So you can email me. You can join me for office hours. I would love to help. If you're feeling pretty good, if you at least understand how to convert between the two, then you can go ahead and start your exit ticket. We are going to be doing this for a couple of days, so it will get a little bit easier as we go. But if you're completely lost, you don't know what's going on, make sure you contact me right away.